Hi, and thank you for your question. I am having trouble reading your email a little bit. Things kind of went vertical on some of the stuff that you sent me, but I think I've got the gist of what you're asking for. So let's start with the first question. And you're off to a great start because what you've done is you've found the slope, and the slope is 5 over 19. So good start there, okay? Now, what we need to do next is find the equation of this line. And so we not only need m, but we also need b, which stands for the y-intercept. One of the ways that we can find b is we can start with the general equation of a line, which is y equals mx plus b. And if we substitute in what we know for the slope, 5 over 19, like that, we can take either one of the points that they gave us as our x and y value, and we can solve for b. So if we put y equals 9 when x equals 19, the 19s will divide out here. So we can see that b equals 4, because 5 plus 4 would give us 9. So now we have an equation for our line, which is 5 over 19x plus 4. The second part of the equation then is telling us that the point 10 comma t lies on the line. In other words, we know the x value, but we don't know the y value for that point. So that should be easy to find because the y value will be t, and we have 5 over 19 times 10 plus 4 on the right-hand side of that equation because x is 10. And so we would have 50 over 19 plus 4. That's equal to 50 over 19 plus, would that be 76 over 19, I think? And the total would be 126 over 19. And so the t value would be the 126 over 19. So I think that's what you're going to do there, if I'm reading that correctly. And again, I apologize, but your email came through a little weird where everything was sort of vertical, like it goes bracket, and then underneath is a 1, then underneath is a 0, then underneath is a comma, then underneath is a t. So it's a little hard to read, but I think I figured out what it is thereafter there for you. So the second question, let me just switch over to a blank page, and we'll have a look at the second question together. And I have a feeling that I know what you're looking for here as well, even though it came through kind of weird also. So just 1 second and let me switch pages. Alright, so here's what I get from your second equation. I think that it's saying the graph of this equation. I think what it says here is that it contains exactly 1 point, and you're required to find the coordinates of that point. And in brackets I see unsure how to complete the square. So let's start by completing the square, which is kind of interesting that they gave you numbers that are both going to be fractions here. That's kind of neat. Alright, so for completing the square, what we're going to do is we're first going to look at the first two terms, the x terms. We're going to start by writing down those first two terms, and then we're going to take a half of the coefficient of the x term. So we've got 3 there. We're going to take a half of that, which is 3 halves. So over here, let's just kind of write what we're doing. And we're going to square that. So 3 halves squared is 9 quarters. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add 9 quarters, and we're going to subtract 9 quarters, because we're just trying to fool the equation temporarily into thinking that it's a perfect square. 9 quarters minus 9 quarters is 0, so we haven't really added anything to our equation. But if we just look at the first 3 terms here, that is actually a perfect square, x plus 3 halves all squared. I know we've got this minus 9/4 that we have to deal with in a minute, but don't worry about him, okay? Now, I'll do this in a different color just so we can kind of keep track of what we're doing. We have y squared minus 5y, and we have to do the same thing. We're going to concentrate on this coefficient of y, which is 5. We're going to take half of it, which is 5 halves, and we're going to square that, which is 25 over 4. We're going to add 25 over 4, and we're going to subtract 25 over 4, so we've really added 0, because we're just trying to fool the equation again into thinking that it's a perfect square trinomial. And this perfect square trinomial would factor as y minus 5 over 2 all squared. You notice how this number and this number are always the numbers that we squared. Okay, it always works out like that. And we still have the 25 over 4, and on the other side equals negative 17 over 2. So it looks like we're heading for the equation of a circle here. We have x plus 3 halves squared plus y minus 5 halves squared. And then we have minus 9/4 and minus 25/4. So that's minus 33/4. And on the other side equals 17 over 2. One more step would be to write this with these parts on the left-hand side. And if I take this term over to the other side, it's going to get added to that negative 17 over 2. That's going to give me positive 16 over 2. Oh, that's a 4. Sorry, I made a mistake. So, oh, I made another mistake. Let's get rid of, oh, now it won't let me erase my first mistake. That's bad. Oh. Okay, there, scratch that out. It doesn't exist. So here we have minus 17 over 2, and we're actually going to bring over the 33 over 4. And that's going to be 34 over 2, or 34 over 4 plus 33 over 4. And that's going to give us negative 1/4 when we add that up afterwards, okay? So, I'm not quite sure I understand the next part of your question, which seems to say that the graph of the equation contains exactly 1 point. And I'm not really sure what you mean by that. I don't have a picture of the original question. It would help maybe if you have a cell phone and you can take a picture of the original question and just send me a screenshot like that, because this is a circle. If we simplify it a little bit more, then we have this on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side it's going to be minus 1/4. And usually, if it's a circle, this part would be r squared, the radius squared, and we can't have a negative radius. So there's something confusing going on here, and I'm not really sure what it is. And again, I'm not sure exactly what your question is asking, because it doesn't make sense for this equation to contain exactly 1 point, not the way it's written. So I don't know if this helps you, what I've done so far. At least I've got the completing the square part here, if that's helpful to you. But if there's more to the question that I don't see and I don't understand, if you could send me a screenshot of that, then that would be very helpful, and maybe I could clarify exactly what you're looking for and send you a little bit more help with it in the morning. Okay? Thank you.